that we want our world to be different. We don't want to be living in a world without our loved one. We don't want to be feeling the way we feel. Hi, and welcome back to Grief Inspired. My name is Catherine McNulty, and today we are going to talk about bargaining in grief. Now, this may be a term that you've heard before, but maybe don't know a lot about it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to define it. We're going to talk about how it shows up, and then we're going to talk about what you can do when you feel like you are in the bargaining stage of grief and you're not sure exactly how to navigate it. So stay tuned. I can't wait to tell you more. Hi, and welcome back to Grief Inspired, where we talk about the grief process and how to keep on living. Because after all, you're the one that's stuck here dealing with your grief and figuring out how to keep on moving forward and how to keep on living is what we really want to do here. So today we're going to be talking about bargaining, and I always start with going to the dictionary. And of course, I went to the Webster dictionary this time, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, what is the Webster dictionary? Where did it come from? So this is just a little aside, but it's an interesting fact that there was a gentleman named Noah Webster who was he was a lexicographer. And a lexicographer is someone who likes to write dictionary definitions. And so that's where Webster's came from. It was later sold to another company, and they defined it as Merriam-Webster, which you might have heard that name before. And then I also found out that the parent company is Encyclopedia Britannica. And so if you are generally the age that I am, you are going to know Encyclopedia Britannica, because that is what we all used before there was the internet to do our book reports in school. So getting back to bargaining, we're here to talk about bargaining and grief. And when we define bargaining, Noah Webster, or Webster's Dictionary now as it's called, says that bargaining has a couple different definitions. It says to negotiate the terms and conditions of a transaction. So we think about bargaining with someone. That transaction involves two people. It can also be bargaining to negotiate the terms and conditions of an agreement. It can also be to haggle. And so that term haggling has an interesting feel to it. When we haggle for something, we feel like we're not getting what we're deserving. So that's, I think, useful. It also says to part with something after negotiation, but to get little or nothing in return. So we talk about this concept of bargaining away maybe our rights or our feelings, or bargaining away money. Again, that is looking at bargaining as a transaction where we're going to lose. And I think that's so prevalent here. And then lastly, to bargain can mean to be prepared for or to expect. And sometimes we say this is more than I bargained for. And doesn't grief feel that way? That we're getting more than we bargained for, because we don't necessarily want this. We don't want to grieve. We don't want to go through the pain that we're going through. And it can feel when we bargaining that we're bargaining, this is a loss for us, right? This is something that we've lost that we're trying to regain, and we're getting little or nothing in return, like the definition says. When we talk more about bargaining, we want to position it, you may be familiar with the 5 stages of grief, right? So denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. But bargaining in grief specifically is that negotiation. It is a negotiation, but I think it's a negotiation for things that we wish were different, that we want our world to be different. We don't want to be living in a world without our loved one. We don't want to be feeling the way we feel. And so what are the things that we bargain for as a result of our loss, as a result of our grief? We bargain for their life, especially in the beginning, because we want them back. We bargain with ourselves. We bargain with God, right? I'll do anything if you just bring them back. We bargain maybe as they're dying, please let them live. I'll do anything, right? We try to do this negotiation with ourselves. We negotiate with God, right? I'll be a different person if this comes out a different way. I will give back. I will help. I will change. These are all the things that we bargain for. When I think of bargaining, for me, there's a very clear and vivid moment that's very emotional for me still. When my son was struggling to live, and babies need very special blood, and my son needed more blood than he had, and so they were waiting to get blood, and they said, well, he needed that and we needed to wait. And I have this very vivid memory that brings tears to my eyes still to this day, when I was talking to the doctors and I was pleading, I was negotiating for his life. I was bargaining that this was not the situation that we were in, that we were fearing for his life. And I bargained with the doctors and I reached my hands out and I said, take mine. Take all of mine. Because I would have bargained my life for his as his mother. I would have given my life to let him live. That is bargaining at its most raw. When we say we would give our own life for someone else. Because we want the world to be different. We don't want the reality of things as they are. We want to bargain to end the pain that we feel. I don't even really like this right now, right? I don't like feeling this way. So we want to bargain for their life. We want to bargain for things to be different. We're willing to trade our own life for theirs. And then we want to bargain to end the pain that we feel. And the thing about bargaining that I've been learning more and more about, I've been reading again this book that's written by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler on grief and grieving. And it talks about finding the meaning of grief through the 5 stages of loss. So it talks about a lot of things grief, and I often go to it to look at things from a different perspective and get more insights, because the one thing that I've learned about grief and grieving and going through the process is the more that you can learn, the more you can look at things a little bit differently, the more interesting they can become, and we can see things in a different light. And I think sometimes that's a really good thing. And the thing about grief and bargaining, when we think about it, is even though we're bargaining in the moment, we're looking backward. We're looking back to the past because we want things to be the way they were. We want our loved one to be alive. Bargaining is about looking backward, about staying in the past. And it's about sometimes wanting to go back in time because we want things to be different. And when we think about bargaining, we have to think about saying, well, what if this? What if this happened? What if that? What if this happened? What if that happened? I hear so many people say, what if I took them to the doctor sooner? During COVID, it was, what if I didn't take them to the doctor? There are so many things. What if? What if I had done this sooner? What if I had seen the signs? What if I had pushed him more to go to the doctor? What if I had been a better person? Sometimes we think that this happens to us because it's some sort of form of punishment. and we bargain to make the punishment stop. But the bargaining process is just that. It's a process. And there is a positive to this process. When we bargain, and when we're in that bargaining and we're running through all the different scenarios that could have happened, right? This is the place where we talk about rumination, where your mind plays over and over and over again, and you can't sleep because you're replaying events that everything had happened, trying to figure out, could I have done something differently? Could I have changed this outcome? What if this? What if that? That's what bargaining is. And the thing about it is that when we bargain, we're in the state of not having to face the reality of what is. And none of us want to get to the point where we have to face the reality that they're gone and that they're not in our lives and that they're not coming back and that there isn't anything that we can do about it. And because of that, some of us stay in the bargaining state for a very long time. And I'm not saying that that isn't okay. We can choose to bargain and be there as long as we need to be. Again, it is a process. But staying in the past, ruminating over things that we cannot change, wishing that things were different, prevents us from seeing the reality, and it prevents us from moving forward, and it prevents us from keeping on living. And this is a quote from the book on grief and grieving. We will do anything not to feel the pain of this loss. We will remain in the past, trying to negotiate, there's that word negotiate again, our way out of the hurt. We remain in the past, trying to negotiate our way out of the hurt. So sometimes being in the bargaining process can bring us some relief from the pain. It can keep us from feeling the gravity of what our life is now. So what do you do about it? Well, you stay in the bargaining phase, state, process, as long as you need to. But when you are in the bargaining process, you are staying in the past. And when you decide that you want to move forward, when you want to keep on living, when you want to figure out what's next, that's when bargaining ends and the reality starts to set in. That's why a lot of times depression happens after bargaining, because we realize the gravity of what we're coming to terms with in our mind. And it's big stuff. This isn't something that we always want to do on our own. That's why we hang out together in my grief course. That's why I want to encourage you to join my Facebook group, Grief Inspired. If you haven't done that, you have to answer the questions. We don't let you in if you don't answer the questions, because we keep it a safe place. But when you have a place to talk through it, to share what you're going through, it helps a little bit. It helps us move forward through the bargaining process and helps us keep moving forward. And that is the goal here of Grief Inspired, is to keep on living. To keep on living, given the reality of the life that you have now. And so as we conclude this discussion on bargaining, I want to go back to another chapter, another section in this book. You can find bargaining in this book. If you haven't read it, it's a good one to get. But here's what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler say. As we move through the bargaining process, the mind alters past events while exploring all of those what ifs and if only statements. What are you saying what if to? What are your if only statements? Take a moment to write them down. Drop a comment below. What is the what if and the if only that you're really struggling with right now? What is that for you? And here's what it goes on to continue saying. Sadly, the mind inevitably comes to the same conclusion. The tragic reality that our loved one is truly gone. There's a lot of pain in that. but the path through your grief, and you know I'm a proponent of the only way out is through your grief, to lean into your grief, to deal with your grief. And the tragic reality is that our loved one is truly gone. And when we start to accept that they are truly gone and that there isn't anything that we can do to bring them back, that's when it gives us a place to heal. It gives us a place to start. So come find me. Email me at griefeinspired@gmail.com. Join my Facebook group. Let's get grieving together. Let's keep going. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep on living. I want to help you through this process. I don't want you to have to do it alone. It's hard and it's big. And so many of us try to grieve on our own, and we think we can handle it, and we think that we shouldn't tell people because we're somehow ashamed. We bargain with the fact that we can do it on our own. And I want to encourage you to be okay with needing help. Be okay with getting support, knowing that this can be bigger than you. And get with other people who get it. That really is the path. It is really how to do grief, if that's how you want to say it. It is the grief process. It should be done with other people. And after all, you deserve to keep on living, to honor your loved one, to honor yourself for all that you're going through, and to help other people in this world. Because after all, we need to be connected. Being connected is what keeps us living. So keep going. Keep on living, and let me know how I can help.